Hello, everyone. Thank you for participating in today's event. Discuss product recalls that are difficult to prevent, detect, and correct when you're using spreadsheets. We have a great group of our participants today from aerospace, wind energy, medical device, some consumer products, and industrial products from around the globe, and appreciate that. This conversation is going to focus only on product recalls from the product view of design, engineering, manufacturing, purchasing, quality, and the suppliers. It's not about large enterprise risk management across all the business processes, like finance, accounting, HR, and external regs, health and safety. Although it may apply, actually it does apply, but we're only going to focus on products today. Little housekeeping, the phones are muted. Would like to get questions from you. Use the question block. A copy of presentation can be downloaded today off the screen, and a certificate of attendance will be provided for those logging in today. Again, the idea is I want to share with you conversations I've had in the last maybe 3 months or so, specifically on this issue of product recalls. And for those of you who've been involved in recalls, I mean, personally involved in the process, you're probably familiar with this. Whether it's Consumer Product Safety Commission, FDA, the Department of Agriculture, EPA, I mean, just think of a recall as a recall. But the purpose of this slide is, a while back, the product liability lawyers got smart enough to say, show me the failure mode and effects analysis for this part. I want to make sure that your organization, went through the review of it. And again, whatever form you're using for FMEAs or whatever, it doesn't matter. But the concept of show me how you did risk management. One of the things I've learned actually quite recently is the lawyers are now asking, is this a purchase part? And if it is a purchase part, they're now asking to see the supplier PPAP or part submission. That's kind of something that's relatively new. And again, if you're using spreadsheets to manage this, it can be a significant risk. So if we just go through a simple recall process, who, what, where, when, how, and why. Who found it? What did they find? Where did they find it or detect it? When was it made? And again, a lot of this is pretty well done in most companies. An ERP app or something's going to tell you where it was made. But the how and why gets interesting. How did it go wrong? And why did it go wrong? Those are the ones that are complicated in the Excel world. And again, regardless of, I know we got a lot of different industries in here, and I just wanted to put this screen in to say, whether you're aerospace or energy or food or all that, just consider risk management the term that we're going to use in here. So whether the form's not identical or, you're using HACCP versus this, just consider the idea of risk management. So for the whole challenge of this, and any executive team or boardroom I talk to, is the whole pay me now or pay me later. We can spend money up front preventing the risk, which is the whole idea of these PFMEAs and FMEA studies. And if we spend a little up front, we save a lot. Or we can just say, do the best we can and wing it, and we'll just detect it, and there's no return on that. It just costs money. And then the recalls, of course, is the correction part where the big money comes in, and there's no ROI on failure costs in recalls. So forget all the business strategy on prevent versus fix. Just focus now on the recall. Big money being spent, and it impacts your market reputation. So again, the recall process, who, what, where, when, how, and when is pretty straightforward. That's people know how to do it. They get they have a process to do that. And again, the who can be, is it a purchase part? Did we make it? Was a processor involved? Was there a distributor involved? Did retail do anything about it? But this how and why, I think, is the area that really needs to be addressed and considered. And how and why, there's really only two possible reasons. Either we knew about it and we missed it, or we didn't even know about it. And this slide, I think, is pretty important because this subject is not that complicated. Either we did a good job in prevention and starting up front, and we did the risk analysis and we knew about it and we missed it, or we didn't even know about it. Now, again, all recalls have some verbiage like this. We want a prompt evaluation by a qualified person to ensure the risks are consistently assessed, et cetera, some verbiage like that. So again, I'm not going to talk about, what it means, a qualified person. Established criteria is probably important, but this potential risk are consistently assessed. This is where it starts to fall apart in spreadsheets. And when you talk about a prompt evaluation, again, there's two things that we're trying to look at. So we had a product recall. Something bad happened. We need to go out and find out how and why. So if we're trying to find these risk management documents that are, when I refer to that, these are the things being done in spreadsheets. How long does it take you to actually find the spreadsheet? And then how long does it take you to interpret it? Now, again, this, hopefully that's not, it doesn't seem like it's a tough question, but it is. Where do I find those spreadsheets? Do I have the current spreadsheet? Do I have an analysis of it? Who has access to it? Who can get it and get to it? And then once I find the spreadsheet, assuming I could find the FMEA or whatever risk analysis you did, how do I interpret it? And what I mean by that is, again, is this the version as made? Is this the current version? Are there data inconsistencies in the documents? Are there broken links? Are there different terms being used? And this is just an example of what's going in, and this is a supplier submission example of standalone non-integrated spreadsheets. The inconsistencies. The PFMEA has these operation numbers, and the control plan has different operation numbers and different vocabulary. Now, you might say it's not a lot. I mean, OP10, block selection for the batch, 5.1, select the box from the batch, block cutting versus cut. I mean, but these inconsistencies are what product lawyers love. Well, did you mean this or did you mean that? Was it supposed to be this or was it supposed to be that? And Excel doesn't really force any consistency or any rules in it. Different descriptions of things. The material wasn't inspected, the equipment failure. And we use the same terms over and over inconsistently, where, contamination is contamination. Was it contamination during transfer? Was it contamination from the supplier? Was it acceptable contamination? Again, lawyers love this stuff, and these inconsistencies drive these conversations that say you didn't really focus on what you need to look at. But let's just assume for the rest of the conversation that I could find the spreadsheets and we had consistent information. So what's next? I mean, what should we do in our recall process? Well, what we want to understand is, did we follow the process flow that was laid out? Did our plants or did our vendors or our distributors follow the process that we reviewed? Did we know about the risks in the process FEMA? Did we understand or underestimate the severity, occurrence, and detection? And do we follow the control plan? I mean, this is the basic question. Remember, we spent all this time doing this risk analysis and laying this out to make sure we minimize our risk. We had a recall, and now we got to go in and try to investigate it and figure it out. So a timely investigation would hopefully quickly get you these documents and quickly enable you to answer these questions. Did we follow the process flow? Well, again, we laid out up 10, up 20, up 30. And when we're looking at on this date and time when this product was manufactured and this is what we did we follow them? Did we do what we said we were going to do? And did we know about the risk in the process FEMA? You know, severity, occurrence, and detection, and the overall risk priority number. Did we think the severity wasn't so bad, but it really was pretty bad? Did we think the occurrence could never happen, but it happens a lot? So again, these ideas of, you know, looking at the analysis done and quickly find it is where we need to do the recall investigation. You know, so, you know, severity, how could it be? How bad could it be? It's a lot worse than we thought. Occurrence, what are the chances of it happening? That'll hardly ever happen. Well, apparently it's happening. Detection, if it happens, could we find it? Whatever we're doing, do we have the right information to say, well, maybe we can have a better inspection or detection approach? And then back to the control plan. This is what we said we're going to do. This is how we're going to do it. This was the sample size and frequency. These are the methods we're going to follow. Did we do everything according to plan? Then again, once you're in the recall process and you go through and look at this, the next question is, all right, well, how are we going to respond to the recall? What decisions are we going to make and how do we act on them? In the process, FEMA, the PFMEA, and actually in any FEMA, there's ability on the right side of the form to say this is who's going to do what when and what was the results. Did the severity, occurrence, and detection get reevaluated and changed? Did the risk priority number go up or down? This is the essence of preventing and correcting anything that caused the recall. So basically, bringing the right side of the FMEA to life, the challenge in spreadsheets is that this is just another row of things in a spreadsheet for a particular part, you know, at a particular date and time. But I've got a lot of purchase parts. I've got a lot of parts we're making. We need to be able to get those action items, the decisions and acting part of the recall process, into a relational database so it can be assigned to people with due dates and tracked. The biggest complaint I've had from people I'm talking about recalls is they understand the FEMA, they understand the story so far, but this part of the FMEA is a huge liability because most engineers, most quality professionals don't have the time or resources to go into every FMEA with every potential product and see the status of these. It can't be managed in a spreadsheet. It needs to be brought to life into a relational database. So the biggest thing I wanted to share is stop using spreadsheets. Now, what do you replace it with? Well, without understanding what your employees need and how the process works, the software will fail. And what I mean by that is, well, we already do all this in a project management tool. We already do this in our PLM system. We already do this in, and when we say this, when I say understand what your employees need, this really isn't project management or task management that they need help with. What they need help with is those spreadsheets, the process flows, the PFMEAs, the control plans, non-integrated standalone spreadsheets being uploaded into some place that are difficult to manage, approve, and review. And basically the same deal with your suppliers. If you don't understand what your suppliers need, the process will fail. So the idea being is we need to be able to get off of spreadsheets and look at this. Now, when I say that, one of the things I came across a couple weeks ago is depending on who you're speaking with in the company, they have different views of this entire recall subject. There's people that do oversight of the recall. They just trying to, hey, we had a recall, what's going on, what are we going to do with it? There's people that manage it, and there's people that execute it. Now, the reason this slide is important is if you go back to the who, what, where, when, how, and why, most of the oversight and management of recalls is not the problem. We have a way to do that. We have task management, project management tools that can keep track of that. But the execution, the idea of the prevent, detect, and improve cycle that's being done in spreadsheets, that's where you're going to get in trouble. that's where it starts to fall apart. So the reason I share this with you is I spend a lot of time with executives whose perception is we already do that. And that to them is oversight and management. That to people that have to execute these detailed forms being done in spreadsheets is a completely different world. And I think it's important to understand that depending on who you're talking to, the perceptions of what's going on is different. So, all I'm suggesting is to get away from spreadsheets, replace it with a database. The database would basically have a product file with part characteristics and process characteristics and ops on how you make it. And that would drive a process flow, PFMEA control plan capability. Again, in a relational database, so things are integrated, things are tied together. I can't have different operations in the process flow than I do in the control plan. Consistency in terms of on failure modes and all this stuff, so things are being done correctly. Pretty straightforward, pretty simple. The idea behind this thing is you want to be able to get it integrated with your other tools in your company to save the engineers and the quality people a lot of time and energy. So whoever's controlling your part data, whether it's the PLM or the ERP, however you're tracking these projects, that's fine. This isn't trying to reduce that. But what we're trying to say is the risk engine you're using, whatever that is, if you're doing that in spreadsheets, you're going to have a bad day. It's very difficult to manage and control. So again, from a summary standpoint, it's all about the execution part. Executing, how much time and money are we spending preventing mistakes? Again, that's the upfront prevention cost. And then what does it cost to detect and correct them? So the idea is the ability to put together the information in such a way that it simplifies that, makes it easier to find and put together. One quick story. There was a conversation I had a while back where it had to do with a specific product recall. And it was where they told me that the lawyers are now saying, is this a purchase part? And the answer was yes, it is a purchase part. The lawyer said, show me the supplier PPAP. And the lawyer started going to these spreadsheets to see what was going on. And during the review, the particular part of the part that caused the failure was not even in the FMEA, so we didn't know about it. I mean, the story got bad. But the point of the story is when we got all done, the lawyer leaves and the executives, the oversight and management people, are looking to the engineers that execute and saying, well, how could we do this? I mean, how could we have, a risk analysis of this particular part that we didn't even know about it? And here's the thing I want you to understand. And this is where you have to understand how the employees are doing what they got to do. The employee basically looked at the executive team and said, look, we get all sorts of purchase parts coming into our PLM app. The PLM app says you have to approve these documents, the process flow PFMEA thing. We don't have the time to go into those. We don't have the time to review all those. We don't even have the time to audit some of them. But I get a call from either purchasing or operations that says, go in and approve that supplier PPAP, because if you don't, the parts can't get shipped and we can't use them. So I go in and approve them. And approval does not mean review. The reason I share that story with you is to drive home the point that oversight and management of recalls is not the same as executing the prevention, detection, and correction of recalls. And it's important for your organization to understand and know the differences. If you want to schedule a private meeting with your executive team, send me an email at jmc@bproso.com. Be happy to talk to you about this. This is a subject that I've been spending a lot of time in the last few years, and would be happy to share that knowledge and information with your executive team as well. Thank you for participating today.